rests with Hamas, which could stop the fighting today by freeing the hostages and agreeing to a ceasefire on the terms already accepted by Israel. I thank you.
The representative of the United States for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of the observed state of Palestine.
Thank you, Mr. President. More than 2 million Palestinians, half of them children, and for more than 650 days now, wake up without knowing if they will make it through the day, and go to sleep without knowing if they will wake up in the morning. Day after day after day. They spent every hour, all 15,600 hours of them, with death besieging them. For an entire generation of Palestinians, death is now much more familiar than life. 2 million people have to snatch everything out of the claws of death: food, water, shelter, time. They are being killed in the places where they are supposed to find life, killed in tents, killed while seeking food or water, killed in hospitals. Every single day has its share of tragedies. We speak of these today. 15 civilians killed, including 9 children, while waiting to receive treatment for malnutrition. 11 killed, including 7 children, while queuing for water. Because of occupation-made water scarcity and occupation-made food scarcity. And every day, 40, 50, 60 Palestinians killed while seeking food. We fear the world is growing accustomed to the unbearable, to the unacceptable. Imagine what it is to be a parent in Gaza. You know that any disease and any wound can be fatal for your child. You know that the family you leave to get food or water or help could be gone by the time you return. Do you take them to the hospital with the fear that they might be killed there, or keep them with you while they might die within your arms? Do you go get food and risk getting shot, or send a family member and risk losing them, or stay and risk seeing your children starve to death? Do you go get water, send a member of your family go get water at the peril of your life or their lives, or risk seeing your family die of thirst? Do you evacuate one more time, forcibly displaced again and again, and get killed on the way, or stay put and get killed where you are? Every decision they are making while we speak is a life and death decision. Every single day, every single hour, every single minute. But it is a Russian roulette with a bullet in almost every chamber. Whatever decision you make, most probably somebody is going to die. Every single family in Gaza is moving between one death and another as the whole world watches on. For 1 million minutes now. In Gaza, all paths lead to death. And our role, our responsibility, our legal and moral duty is to open one that leads to salvation. One that leads to salvation. Israel wants that path to be leaving Gaza. That was the whole plan from day one. In the words of Mahmoud Darwish, this siege will endure until we are truly persuaded into choosing a harmless slavery, but in total freedom. They want to say, we chose to leave. We chose to be occupied. We chose to be oppressed. It is our fault. It's always our fault. That has been the narrative since the beginning. Didn't they say we were responsible for our own Nakba? That we left on our own, forgetting the massacres and the towns and villages destroyed? Let them leave, they say. This is Israel's solution for the Palestine question, a right to further and definitive exile rather than a right of return or a right to life and liberty in our ancestral homeland. Mr. President, humanitarian assistance like international law are expressions of our recognition of the value of human life, all human life, and of the inherent dignity of each and every person. States have rights, peoples have rights, human beings have rights. But Israel does not recognize our state. It does not recognize our people. It does not recognize us as equal human beings endowed with rights. They find it outrageous that anybody can dare be outraged by the fate they have reserved to our people. Mr. President, distribution of aid is distribution of life. It is about safeguarding life. We measure our success by impact, by the lives we save. We keep discussing trucks and how many meals were distributed, and we count calories, while infants are dying of malnutrition, while civilians seek food, water, shelter at the peril of their lives, while the infrastructure of life is being dismantled altogether. Aid must be delivered at scale. Aid must be delivered to all. Aid must be delivered across all of Gaza. This is non-negotiable. This shouldn't be a point of contention or debate or discussion. Israel has obligations as an occupying power to do so. We support an immediate ceasefire and the mediation efforts of Egypt, Qatar, and the United States to secure such a ceasefire. But that is not a reason, nor an excuse, nor a pretext, in the meantime, to continue killing Palestinians or to continue denying them the aid they are entitled to. Every day, a death sentence is executed against somewhere between 90 and 130 Palestinians. Their crime, the real crime they are being executed for, is being Palestinian. How is that possible? You heard Israeli leaders say there are no innocent civilians in Gaza, speak of human animals, and they are treating our people as such. What if we had said these words? There are no innocents in Israel. They support the occupation, they support the genocide, they voted for the people killing us or occupying us or subjugating us, they cheered while we were killed. That is not acceptable as a reasoning. No civilian can be killed based on what a group or a government is doing. No civilian can be held responsible for that and be killed for that. All civilians are entitled to protection, regardless of nationality, faith, or race, to be protected from being killed, from being taken hostage or arbitrarily detained, from being subjected to inhumane and degrading treatment, to torture, to forcible displacement. These are basics. These are the foundations of our international law-based order, and we still need to speak again of them because they are not being upheld. This continuous incitement and dehumanization kills and makes the most horrific plans become mainstream in Israel, including the crazy and criminal idea to ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip. Every day, it's been 650 days, every day, 77 children are killed or maimed in Gaza. Every day, 61 children in Gaza lose a parent. Every day, 10 children lose one or both legs. Every single day. The biggest cohort of children killed and maimed, the biggest cohort of child amputees, the biggest cohort of orphans. How is that possible? Netanyahu summed it up. This is a struggle, he said, between the children of light and the children of darkness, end quote. Why should one care about the children of darkness? All children are God's creation. All children are God's children. Here they are, those Palestinian children whose light shines over the entire earth and who were subjected to darkness. Hind, who was stuck with her family in a car, and after all the adults had been killed, her cousin Layan, 15 years old, was begging the rescuers to come and save them until she was struck by multiple bullets by Israeli occupation forces. That's when the world discovered the voice of Hind, begging to be rescued. Finally, she was also killed, and the rescuers coming to help her were killed. Khalid and Reem, we did not discover them like this. They were inseparable. We discovered them only when Reem was killed. And as her grandfather, was holding his 3-year-old granddaughter, kissing her as if she was still alive, calling upon her, the soul of his soul, to stay with him. A few months later, Khalid also was killed. Yusuf, the 7-year-old, the youngest of his family, the boy with the curly hair, as he will become to be known for all Palestinians and for people around the world, also killed. The family of the pediatrician, Ala Najjar, who lost 9 of her 10 children. Only Adam survived. 9 of her 10 children. Sidar, Luqman, Sadin, Rival, Ruslan, Jubran, Eve, Rakan, and Yahya, aged between 7 months and 12 years. The Arafat family, the entire family found itself under the rubble. 13 members of the family were killed, including 7 children, in an airstrike, and the Israeli forces prevented rescuers from saving them. The images of Hala, 35 years old, as she was calling to be saved from under the rubble, will remain as part of the memory, collective memory of our people. And Salam, that you evoked, Mr. President, 6 months old when she was screened for malnutrition, only to die a few days later. One image among many of our children starving. I will spare you the images of our children burning. Dunya, who lost a leg in an Israeli airstrike, where she lost also her family members, her mother, her father, her brother and sister. And Dunya, resilient, said, I will not lose hope. I will not give up on my dreams. I will become a doctor to help people. She was killed when a tank shell struck a children's ward at Al-Nasr Hospital a few weeks later. Hur lost her leg lost her family, her father, her mother, her 3 brothers. Doctors had to amputate her left hand entirely and the fingers of her right hand, and she had wounds at her head and legs. Siwar and Selina, 3 years and 21 months old, together in life and together in death. This image, unfortunately tragic images, are the ones winning this World Photo Prize by Samar Abu al-Auf, a photo of Mahmoud, 9-year-old Palestinian boy whose arms were severed and mutilated during an Israeli attack on Gaza. But also in the West Bank, 8-year-old Adam, he ran when Israeli occupation forces shot at him, his brother and his cousin. His cousin was killed. And he was killed when he was struck by a bullet while he was running away, a bullet in his head, in the back of his head. Remember these faces. It is our duty to remind you of them, not to allow you to forget them. And remember all the children we can still save. In the West Bank, Israel displaced 40,000 people and destroyed entire refugee camps in Tulkarem, Tubas, and Jenin. It killed almost 1,000 Palestinians in the last 20 months, including 200 children. Palestinian villages are under incessant attacks by settlers and occupation forces from Masafir Yatta to Kafar Malik, from Taibe to Deir Debwan to Sinjil, where Saif Muslat was beaten to death by the settlers, and Muhammad al-Shalabi was shot in the chest and died. And again there in the West Bank, rescuers too were denied to reach the victim for several hours until they could no longer be saved. The same patterns at a different scale. Rampage and burning, destroying, killing Palestinian families and homes and hospitals and schools and mosques and churches and cemeteries and infrastructure and businesses. Everything is under attack. Palestinian presence and life in the land of Palestine is under attack. What world is this, where Israel can claim it can kill anyone in Gaza, They are either terrorists who deserve to be killed, or human shield, it cannot be blamed for killing them. What if we accept this reasoning that a state cannot be held responsible for the people it kills? Is that the precedent? Is that the world we want to be living in? It is a genocide. Many observers say it, many independent organizations say it, many scholars say it from Israel and the rest of the world. And we blame Israel for these actions, not Israeli civilians, not Jews around the world. They're not responsible for what Israel is doing. And many Jews around the world stand for justice in Palestine and elsewhere. They call it a genocide, and they fight to stop this genocide, and they fight for a future of peace. People in Israel also are able to say it, and we are able to say it around this table. And we stand with everyone, regardless of their nationality and faith, who stand for justice. We stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder. What world is this where one party can destroy a country and all the requirements of life and then pretend to be human and give lessons about the right to voluntary migration? Let them leave, this place is hell, says the person who turned it into hell in the first place. What world is this where a country can use starvation and thirst as weapons of war, and then under pressure to stop, is able to turn aid distribution into a tool to advance death and displacement at the same time? What world is this where putting an end to massacres or to get aid to be distributed is subject to negotiations? What world is this where humanitarian is characterized to identify a so-called city that is inhumane in its design and its purpose? Terms are being distorted, and rules are not only being breached, they are being obliterated. And it is our people who pay the price. What world is this where those defending international law are considered guilty and the perpetrators can never be held to account? Where Israel can be prosecutor, judge, and executioner, and then we will ask them to investigate their own crimes, the ones they were ordered to commit at the highest level of their leadership, espousing these crimes, pushing for these crimes, inciting these crimes, organizing and planning these crimes. What world is this where humanitarians trying to save lives are attacked and killed? Health workers and humanitarians and UN personnel, and those killing them blame them for their death. What world is this where those documenting the crimes perish to silence them? What world is this where we need to say that aid is not a bargaining chip, not a method of pressure, not a weapon of war, not an instrument for displacement and forcible displacement? Mr. President, and I conclude, our role is not to be the narrators of this genocide, but to be part of the movement that brings it to an end. Our role is not to be witnesses and testify. It is to deliver justice and peace. The fate of a nation depends on the decisions that states are willing to take today to save civilians, to end the genocide, to achieve a ceasefire, to release hostages and prisoners, to deliver aid, to ensure the withdrawal of Israeli forces, to deliver justice, to end occupation, to achieve shared peace and security for all, shared peace and security, to save humanity and our international law-based order. This world is doomed and damned if it continues allowing for Palestinians to be killed in this manner, to allow children to be killed in this manner. Save Gaza, so we may all be saved by Gaza. That will continue to be our call to all to act, states, individuals, entities, organizations, agencies. Save Gaza, or we are all doomed. Save Gaza, so we can all be saved by Gaza. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Observer State of Palestine for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Israel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I begin my statement, I would like to comment on the two briefings we heard today. Israel is engaged with various UN agencies in good faith at the highest levels, and it is unfortunate that OCHA has continued to abandon all semblance of neutrality and impartiality in its statements and actions, despite claiming otherwise and claiming to adhere to them here today in this room. While referencing the West Bank and events that took place all the way back in May, both briefers only addressed Palestinian casualties based on information that is presented by Hamas. If it is neutrality and impartiality that our UN colleagues adhere to, why was there no mention, let alone a condemnation, of the terror attack where a 9-month pregnant woman was murdered by Palestinian terrorists and her unborn son was seconded to his wombs 15 days afterwards? Mr. President, Roni and Alma Miran are 4 and 2.5 years old. Like many kids their age, they regularly make pretend phone calls on their toy phones. But unlike most children their age, when their mother, Lishai, asks them who they're speaking to, their answer carries a deep pain. The answer is always the same: Abba, Dad. They ask, "Where are you, Daddy? Are they letting you return to us?" They hug and kiss his photo, not able to physically do so for 21 months. Their father, Omri Miran, has been held hostage by Hamas in Gaza for 649 days. For those 2 young girls, that's nearly their entire lives without their Abba. Earlier this month, twin sisters Emma and Yuli Cunyo, who were themselves abducted by Hamas alongside with their parents on October 7th, celebrated their 5th birthday. What should have been a day filled with balloons, laughter, and joy was instead a somber affair marked by absence and pain, because it was their 2nd birthday without their father, David Cunyo, who is still held hostage in Gaza. Their birthday wish was heartbreakingly simple: we just want Dad to come back home. These are not isolated tragedies. These are not statistics. These are shattered families suffering each day in suspended agony. These are innocent civilians held by terrorists, a horror the world must never normalize, a horror that Israel will not accept. Mr. President, we meet today again to discuss the humanitarian situation in Gaza, with a briefing from UNICEF concerning the situation of Palestinian children. Yes, the suffering of Palestinian children and the suffering of children anywhere demands our attention. Yet the glaring silence of this Council about Israeli children, about hostages, murdered toddlers like the Bibas boys, on traumatized survivors who will never see their parents again, on children running for shelter as Iranian missiles rain down on civilian population centers, is more than a technical omission. It is a moral failure. Scores of Israeli children were mutilated, tortured, and murdered on October 7th. Innocent lives cut short by the barbarity of Hamas terrorists. These children were victims of an evil that this Council seems unwilling to address or condemn: Hamas. Instead, we're presented with a narrative that forces Israel into a defendant's chair, while Hamas, the very cause of this conflict and the very instigator of suffering of Israelis, but also of Palestinians, goes unmentioned, unchallenged, and immune to condemnation. Some in this Council seem to forget what caused the humanitarian situation in Gaza. To address the situation without mentioning Hamas's war crimes, hiding weapons in schools, firing rockets from hospitals, using civilians as human shields, is not a humanitarian concern. It is propaganda. And even this additional session held today, a week before an already scheduled dedicated Council session, plays directly into the hands of the terrorists who engineered this conflict. It does not support peace, but politicizes suffering. Rather than requesting concrete consultations to learn about the efforts on the ground, the Council gathers to do the opposite, to pressure one side while absolving the other. There is a serious effort on the ground to achieve a hostage deal. Prime Minister Netanyahu's visit to Washington last week to meet with President Trump and other senior administration officials underscored just how committed Israel is in its will to achieve a hostage deal. And Israel continues to closely work with the United States and with Egypt and Qatar on reaching a deal that would bring our loved ones home and would end Hamas's reign of terror. Israel will keep supporting the entry of food, baby formula, medicine, and critical supplies because we believe innocent civilians deserve relief from the agony that Hamas has caused them. But we will not allow that aid to become fuel for terror. And yet, even as aid flows in, Hamas does everything in its power to disrupt it. They loot supplies. They obstruct distribution. They intimidate international aid workers. They fired aid convoys, steal fuel intended for hospitals, and hoard food for their terrorists. They turned the sufferings of the civilians of Gaza into a tool of leverage, and then blame Israel for the very hardship they manufacture. Anyone who truly cares about humanitarian assistance must be serious about condemning those who prevent it from reaching the people. Let us stop pretending that Hamas is a bystander to this crisis. They are its architect. So I ask, does this Council stand with the effort to improve the situation on the ground, or with those who obstruct it? While this Council speaks of humanitarian suffering, let us provide an update on the real humanitarian action underway. Over the past 2 weeks, Israel, together with international organizations, has facilitated the entry of thousands of tons of humanitarian aid into Gaza, using mechanisms designed specifically to bypass Hamas terrorists and reach the civilian population directly. These efforts have been coordinated with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which has now delivered more than 66 million meals to Gazans. In addition, more than 7,500 tons of flour have been delivered to bakeries across Gaza, ensuring bread for families. Today alone, over 130 patients and caregivers, including children, exited Gaza through the Kerem Shalom and Allenby bridge crossings for treatments abroad. So perhaps it's time to put an end to the dissemination of disinformation by some in the Council regarding which paths lead to what. There are paths of cooperation and improvement. Earlier this week, on July 13th, nearly 100 tons of baby formula donated by UNICEF entered Gaza through the Kerem Shalom crossing, facilitated by Israel. We do wonder why this was omitted from the briefing this afternoon. It should be absolutely clear. The aid is for the civilians in Gaza, not for Hamas, and we will continue to facilitate it. Mr. President, Council members, one cannot claim to care about the children and people of Gaza while ignoring the suffering of Israeli children and hostages still held there. A mere mention, a single reference in a 15-minute presentation is not enough. The empty words will not do. You cannot champion peace while turning a blind eye to those who wage terror. If this chamber truly wishes to ease the suffering of all children, Israeli and Palestinians, then you must confront the root of this conflict, and that root is Hamas. Hamas has built its war machine at the expense of Palestinian lives and futures. It has robbed Gazan children of their innocence, indoctrinating them with hate in their classrooms, using them as human shields, and burying weapons in their schools and hospitals. Imagine what Gaza could be without Hamas, a place of peace, where children learn math, not martyrdom, where aid builds homes, not terror tunnels, where coexistence replaces hate. There are those who wish to work with Israel in good faith, regional partners who cooperate with us to bring hope to children across the region. It can be achieved, but it can only be achieved without Hamas. And it is time for this Council to speak and act with moral clarity to achieve this goal, with demanding the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages, deceased and alive, still held in Gaza, by condemning Hamas unequivocally for what it has done to Israelis, but also for what it has caused to the Palestinians, by designating Hamas as a terror organization it is. This is what the Council should be focusing on. Israel, on its part, will continue to work with the US, Egypt, and Qatar to reach a hostage deal and to bring all our loved ones home. Mr. President, to conclude, every child deserves safety. Every child deserves a future. That future cannot be built on hate. Our children, all children, deserve more than this Council's silence in the face of terror. They deserve your voice, and they deserve your action. And Alma, Roni, Emma, and Yuli deserve to hug their fathers again. Thank you, Mr. President.
This rests with Hamas, which could stop the fighting today by freeing the hostages and agreeing to a ceasefire on the terms already accepted by Israel. I thank you.
The representative of the United States for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of the observed state of Palestine.
Thank you, Mr. President. More than 2 million Palestinians, half of them children, and for more than 650 days now, wake up without knowing if they will make it through the day, and go to sleep without knowing if they will wake up in the morning. Day after day after day. They spent every hour, all 15,600 hours of them, with death besieging them. For an entire generation of Palestinians, death is now much more familiar than life. 2 million people have to snatch everything out of the claws of death: food, water, shelter, time. They are being killed in the places where they are supposed to find life, killed in tents, killed while seeking food or water, killed in